By John Harris, editor-in-chief, co-founder of Politico, now their senior columnist. He does it from 30,000 feet now. He looks down, and no better person to talk to than when I go up so far that I can see both the United Kingdom and the United States. John Harris, good morning. How
We
are
are
you,
way up
friend?
there, Hugh. We
Yeah,
are
way up there.
at satellite level, huh? You're in
Yeah, well,
orbit.
here's my satellite level take. The Remainers fought for 3 years to defy the will of the British people, and they were thrashed last night when they finally got back. I think House Democrats, with this impeachment fiasco, the never Trumpers, the resistance, most of media with their Trump hatred, Trump derangement syndrome, are putting themselves in for the same kind of shock. Your take?
Well, it won't be a shock if we follow these signs. I do think we look back 3-4 years ago. We saw that Brexit was a leading indicator of something big going on in Western democracies, and so people that had been looking at that should have anticipated. People in my profession, people in the political class, should have anticipated Trump more clearly than we did. I do think the size of Boris Johnson's victory it's eye-opening. Uh, Brexit was a very narrow proposition at the beginning, as you'll remember. In that sense, it was like Trump versus Clinton. Um, I think it won by 1 or 2 percentage points. I always thought it was a pretty big move to take the United Kingdom out of the European Union on the basis of just a couple percentage point victory. This victory by Boris Johnson is the equivalent of the second referendum. And I think there's no question where the will of the British people. They want a conservative government. They want out of Brexit. The issue is on the table, and now it seems to have been resolved.
Now, John, one of the things I think we have to look at is the fact that Channel 4 and the other BBC channels to a lesser extent simply remain. Oliver Letwin and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Philip Hammond, along with the drifting, aimless Labour Party, all they did was resist the first referendum. And I think voters notice when they are being ignored. And I think they believe that Donald Trump, whatever his drawbacks and whatever his strength, is being pursued relentlessly, not by a deep state. We don't have a deep state, but by a cabal on cable, and obviously Crossfire Hurricane was a nightmare that even if it wasn't politically motivated, was a deep insult to civil liberties. Do they not see the risk of that fiasco in the House yesterday? Because I listened to it in an Uber last night coming back from a party downtown with the fetching Mrs. Hewitt. And the Uber driver, who was from Ethiopia, had listened all day, and he said, "This is just crazy." And it was just crazy, John.
Look, Democrats have been, I think Democratic leaders, maybe not the Democratic rank and file, have been aware from the beginning that of the risks of impeachment. It's really the flip side of the risks of President Trump's polarizing style. It energizes his supporters and makes them ready to fight on his behalf. Also energizes the other side. Democrats have got their party energized, and in fact, their party demanded they do this. The risks are on the other side, and the risk of the group of people. We forget that they are there, Hugh, because our society is so polarized. But there are people in the middle who are kind of watching and making choices along the way. They are still some of those swing voters, and I suspect you're right. I don't think they're enthusiastic about the impeachment
Do
process.
you think the voters of the United Kingdom are polarized?
I mean, there's no question that they are. There's deep divisions by class and by people who feel who are believers in this '90s and sort of early 2000s vision of a global connected society that Tony Blair stood for. And there's a group, and it now seems to be a majority, who says, look, that is not the future of the United Kingdom. That's not the future of Western society. I don't buy this globalist vision. Works well for elites, doesn't work well for the rest of us.
Now, John, I don't think it's polarized. I do believe it's divided, but that the slice of the pie that is divided into that Remain vision and into the Corbynite other vision is quite small relative to the United Kingdom's supermajority of 60 to 65%. And I don't think the United States is, quote, polarized to the extent that it implies 50-50. I don't think we're even close. The president this morning has tweeted, forget the music, I'll just read you the three tweets. Number one, Poll numbers have gone through the roof in favor of no impeachment, especially with swing states and independents in swing states. People have figured out the Democrats have no case. It is a total hoax. Even Pelosi admitted yesterday that she began this scam 2.5 years ago. Tweet number 2. The do-nothing Democrats have become the parties of lies and deceptions. The Republicans are the party of the American dream. Tweet number 3. The Republican Party is more united now than at any time in its history by far. He is charging up the hill. I mean, he's going to take no political prisoners at this point, and
All
we
right,
are in. Go ahead.
Hugh, it's a bit early yet. I hope you don't mind if I challenge you just a bit on this.
Oh, please.
President Trump and his own people say this. He's got a ceiling and a floor that's in the 40s. It's on a good day, it's 45. On a bad day, it's 41, 40, something like that. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to win re-election. Barack Obama was in roughly the same circumstances at roughly the equivalent time in 2012. But that does not say to me that we're not a polarized country or that there's a strong majority for President Trump. I think what you're saying is that there's a strong majority against impeachment. I think maybe you're on better grounds on that. The question is, it's a question for the conservative government in the United Kingdom. It's a question for the Trump administration here is, apart from these fights and apart from the impeachment drama and apart from that string of tweets you just read, where is the conservative movement going? If you can answer the question for me, don't impeach President Trump and instead reelect him, because in 4 more years we're going to do what?
I'll tell you exactly.
You're pretty well informed, and you can do that. But
we're going to go from
the message is not reaching an average vote.
We're going to go from 50 circuit court judges to 100. We're going to go from 120 district court judges to 240. We are going to rationalize the tax code and begin to control the spending. We're going to get to a 355-ship Navy. We are going to confront China systematically and without violence across a broad array of fronts, including trade and intellectual property. And we're going to be serious about taking very seriously the people who have been forgotten by coastal elites. And by that, we mean an industrial policy that looks to encourage Apple and Amazon and all these other gigantic Silicon Valley companies to place their energy into places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio that have been left behind by the 90s and the aughts. And Donald Trump on Twitter is just sort of the rough edge of that revolution of freedom, John Harris, as opposed to...
Well, that is not bad. They should sign you up because that's pretty crisp articulation. But I actually haven't heard much from President Trump, and presumably we will more once impeachment is over, and we'll hear it in the State of the Union. But I haven't heard much about what that next 4 years would look like. Hear a lot about how mad he is about the battles he's in now. I think it's interesting. I wonder if President Trump would agree, elect me, and I'll control spending. Did I hear that correct?
Yeah. Oh, in fact, he has said that. Not many people. Yeah, many people. Not a deficit hawk, but that he will begin the slowdown of spending. Not a deficit hawk. He's not going to raise taxes. But I do believe generally he's also going to say, have you internalized the jobs number from this month, John? Can you say it offhand? It's like a quiz. This is an ambush question.
3.5, right? It's an amazing number. It's good for all.
266,000 jobs at the end of a 10-year expansion. The economy is, I'm 63 years old. It's the best economy of my life. You can't walk down a street in D.C., Old Town, anywhere in Maryland and not see help wanted signs on every door. Young people get jobs. They get good jobs. Amazon is going crazy and hiring people. It's a best of times, and yet the Democrats are up there doing this crazy stuff. I want to give you the last minute. They got to stop this.
Hugh, if I could talk about those numbers and just point something out, just so you don't think I'm being adversarial, look at both sides. We've got a pretty interesting story on Politico this morning by my colleague Alex Eisenstadt about how the Trump campaign is trying to make inroads in the African American community, even the Hispanic community. And I think it's underappreciated by the political class. There's a good chance this will be somewhat successful, that they can take the 8% of the votes they got 4 years ago or 3 years ago and bring it up to 14, something like that.
15 to 20%.
Those numbers are great.
And that means a blowout win. John Harris, keep coming back from Politico. He is their senior writer now. He's up in the clouds with me looking down from satellite level. We got to call him the satellite columnist. Thank